worldwide.
Welcome back to Fast Money. Bitcoin making a comeback after trading below $14,000 earlier today. This as its rivals are seemingly gaining ground on the cryptocurrency. Bob Pisani is at the NYSE with more. Hi, Bob.
Hello, Melissa. After a brief slump during the holidays, Bitcoin is rebounding big time after starting up modestly today, about 4%. It took off on heavy volume about 1 p.m. Eastern time, up 12% on the day. The Ethereum, its rival, was also strong early on, but it sold off about the same time Bitcoin took off, but Ethereum still ended the day up about 13%. What happened? Bitcoin took off right about the time the Wall Street Journal reported tech investor Peter Thiel had made a significant investment in Bitcoin through his founder fund. Now, the venture capital firm bought about $15 million to $20 million of Bitcoin. The Journal reported that after Bitcoin's surge in the last year, those holdings are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. It wasn't clear, though, whether the founders had sold any of its holdings. Bitcoin may still be king of the cryptocurrency hill, but the upstarts have made impressive gains in the past month. Look at this. Ripple and Ethereum are now almost 1/3 of the market capitalization of Bitcoin. And this may be the year for digital currencies from governments. Venezuela is reportedly launching their oil-backed cryptocurrency soon, maybe this week, backed by 5.3 billion barrels of oil worth $267 billion. That's what they say. Now, and Russia's also reportedly developing a crypto ruble, which may be useful in avoiding international sanctions. The theory here is that they may be able to settle accounts with counterparties all over the world and essentially avoid the sanctions. By the way, it's important to point out this is not really a cryptocurrencies. This is just a ruble trading on a digital platform. Presumably, it would have a one-to-one relationship. Back to you, Melissa.
All right. Thank you very much, Bob Pisani. Beeks, what do you make of all the developments here in terms of countries developing their own cryptocurrency?
Will you start working with Vladimir Putin?
Right. I will not start working with Vladimir Putin. I have no plans to. I'm skeptical of these country cryptocurrencies. There's not a lot of reason for them to exist. The currencies themselves, fiat currencies, are already digital. Right? The whole point of a cryptocurrency is that it's an alternative financial system. It's a new type of financial system. So the idea, and it's decentralized and nobody controls it. So the idea that a country is now going to issue it and control it, to me, kind of defeats the purpose. Plus, Russia could just use Bitcoin to settle accounts. People do it all the time. You don't need to create your own. So I'm skeptical of that.
Are you still in your position of Ethereum?
Yeah, look, I mean, to me, ultimately, you have a case here where you're seeing a broadening of the entire market. You have a case where I think people are looking to also have diversification and other exposure. The reality is when you start hearing about, Sweden's Riksbank is also thinking about having a digital krona, and you have a case where clearly the question about the existential question has been answered as far as I'm concerned. Now it's really about finding the best top technology, the best usage, and then you get into liquidity issues. So I think in the case of Ethereum, I still think liquidity needs to go higher institutionally, and therefore it's going to be the top 4 or 5 horses.
All right, well, it's not just cryptocurrencies that have been surging. More companies just keep getting in on the crypto craze. For example, Chanticleer Holdings soaring almost 50% today after announcing that it would be using blockchain technology for a loyalty program. Customers can essentially mine cryptocurrencies by eating at Chanticleer branded restaurants. It's a burger chain, by the way, and can use them for future meals. Our next guest says a company is getting in on crypto boom. Need to watch out. A big crackdown could be on the way. Jake Zemansky is a partner at Zemansky LLC and a top authority in securities arbitration law. Jake, great to have you with us.
Thank you.
I knew it was going to be a matter of time before we had you on the show. There's a big difference between things that are actually in violation of securities laws and things that just don't smell right. Right. So what is actually in violation of laws right now in your view?
All right. Right now, we're seeing the SEC going after initial coin offerings and claiming that they have to be registered as securities. That's a securities offering. That provides investor protection, disclosures, things like that. We're seeing manipulation, some wild swings in Bitcoin-related stocks. I'm also concerned that there's some pump and dump schemes going on out there.
It's specifically in ICOs.
Not in ICO,
Okay.
Bitcoin-related stocks.
Such as like the one...
There was
we talked about here on this show.
Yeah, crypto.
Are there specific targets right now that you're looking at?
I've been hearing from investors who are getting pitched by brokers to get into some of these Bitcoin-related cases. There have been 4 class actions already filed. State regulators are looking at it. People are borrowing money on their houses, mortgages to jump in on the Bitcoin train. So I am looking at some specific cases. The regulators are there. and there's a lot of questions for investors.
So I want to peel back the onion because there are a lot of ways that you can sort of go after these targets. For instance, the ICOs I get, that sounds like these are cases of fraud in large part from the SEC standpoint. In terms of these companies, is it wrong for a company to say, I'm going to call myself Melissa Blockchain instead of Melissa Pet Store?
Yes,
Right, exactly. Is there fraud on my part, or is it the brokers who sell my stock who say, you know what, I know this great blockchain stock called Melissa Blockchain. Used to be a pet store, but now it's a blockchain stock. Where, what is your target?
All right. What we're looking at are companies that are making false statements in selling the stocks. One company was saying we're the fastest blockchain in the world. Consulting companies that are going public, reverse mergers into pet stores and things like that you mentioned. So if the balance of information is false and misleading, and you see stock rises and falls, we're going to be bringing cases against those companies. If there's manipulation, stock goes up. There was one stock that went up 200% in one day, 1,000% in a week, on a very small movement. Those could be market manipulations by insiders or other investors that are trying to move the stock. That's the classic pump and dump.
Right. These things are kind of hard to prove, aren't they? I mean, what strikes me about a lot of the press releases these companies issue when they're changing their name to whatever blockchain, for instance, is that they're sort of vague. They're saying, we're going to now make investments in blockchain technology. They're not promising anything. They're not going to say blockchain is our primary technology or blockchain is our primary product or anything like that. They're saying things like, we are going to start looking into, blockchain investment opportunities.
You better be careful with what you say and how you're conducting your business. If you're really a pet company and a small percentage of your company is blockchain and you're using the name, that could be fraudulent. So look, they're good companies, there's good places to invest in this space, but there are also the seedy people that are out there. I'm hearing about it. It's reminiscent of the dot-com boom and bust when anything internet became a stock, a public offering, and as we know, many of them failed and many of them were scams.
So what should investors look for when they're looking at these stocks, right? So I look at Walmart and they say they're using blockchain to track pork prices in China. Does there actually have to be a use case, or is it just good enough to say, if a company is just saying, hey, we're going to use blockchain for something, should investors look at that as a red flag?
Not necessarily. I'm talking about companies where they're touting their ability to market Bitcoin, be consultants, and maybe improve the process. Those are the companies you have to look at carefully. Now, investors are usually listening to brokers and pitches. It's important to do your own homework. Go to Edgar, look at the SEC filing. If you get a prospectus on a new offering, pick it up and read it. You don't have to read it cover to cover, but have some idea of what's going on. And if you don't understand it, pass on the investment, try something else.
I want to ask you about a case that we have been following here on this show very closely, and that is Riot Blockchain. This is a company that used to be known as Bioptics back in October. Changed its name to Riot Blockchain. The stock soared. More recently, we find out that the CEO sold almost 30,000 shares of his stock. It wasn't a pre-planned sale. Made the filing Friday before New Year's Eve weekend. Still owns 12,500. And of course, the stock had soared, so he benefited from that rise. This smells not right to the average person. But is that, for instance, a possible target in your view?
Insider selling is always a red flag. We have to look at why this person sold. Like you say, if there was no prearranged sale that was there, you have to look at why was he doing it? Was he trying to manipulate it? I can say this about the SEC. They've been going light on corporate America and Wall Street in this new administration. They're going hard and heavy at the Bitcoin space. So I'm sure they're going to take a look at that.
Are you?
This particular one, I may well do it. Thanks for the tip.
Wow.
You should watch Fast Money. We're into this stuff all the time.
Thank you. There's a lot of things going on, and it's all on my radar screen.
Yeah, but I mean, it sounds like it's almost blue sky when it comes to who you can go after. You can go after the companies themselves. You can go after the broker selling the stocks to the individual. I mean, there are many layers
Right.
of fault, potentially, in your view.
I'm looking at companies, I'm certainly looking at brokers, and now I'm going to be looking at investment banks that underwrite some of these deals.
Right.
They have responsibility. You can't just rely on what the company is saying. You have to do your own due diligence if you're an underwriter. So if I were an underwriter, I'd think long and hard and do a lot of due diligence before I do one of these deals, because there could be tremendous exposure for a Wall Street underwriter.
Jake, good to see you. Happy New Year. Jake Szymanski.
Thank you. This is a big space for me this coming year.
Yeah, keep us posted.
Thank
big
you.
space for us as well. What do you think?
So the overarching message that I get is that regardless of the coin that you pick, blockchain is the technology that will be in existence here and thereafter. Overstock has the first SEC compliant ICO. That's the way I'm playing it. Now, these guys are legitimate. They have Medici Ventures, so you can say whatever you want about their e-commerce business, but this is a real business. This is what I'm invested in.
The one thing that Jake said that's very interesting, though, is that the administration, which has been relatively soft on corporate, takes this as something that they want to go aggressively against. And when you hear Putin say things that we really want to settle transactions around the world with the ability to evade sanctions, it tells you why governments are involved here. I don't know that that has to derail anything. What I think we've always said here is a little regulation, especially from the SEC, protecting consumers in securities themselves is fantastic. And actually, that's what will make this market better.
One last quick question to our crypto guru, and that is, we see a crackdown on the companies and ICOs. Does that have any sort of negative halo effect? I don't know what the negative halo is on Bitcoin itself.
Probably not. I mean,
Okay.
Bitcoin is a global currency, and it's subject to each local regulation. So I don't think it necessarily. It's probably a positive at this point, because we're starting to see professional institutional investors come into this market, and they want a clean, pure play. So I think this is a good thing, and I think it's good that there's people like Jake out there protecting others.
Still ahead, Amazon's next target. Tech guru Gene Munster making a bold prediction right here on the show that Amazon could buy Target. But how likely is a deal?